Zapinette Goes to the North Pole, a novel by Russo. Chapter 2, Bergen. It was so good to get off the ship alone with Unky Berky, because I really prefer to roam like a lone wolfette, even in foreign places, than being part of a herd of sheep led by Miss Piggy and her loudspeaker waving that stupid flag at us so we don't get lost. Unfortunately, sometimes during these trips, you can't avoid behaving like a bloomin' sheep for security or other kinds of reasons, which I don't want to waste my ink explaining to you. Nowadays, the poor lone wolves are compared to terrorists. Now, why do politicians, man, oh mensch, compare them criminals to animals? They really lack imagination. Even the ugliest and most horrible of beasts, like crocodiles, hyenas, or even cobras, and goddess knows if they give me the willies, have more morals than them cowards who kill innocent people unannounced. These disgusting beasts are dangerous, not because they want to torture their prey, like electrocuting or beheading them with a sword, yuck, yuck, but because they either want to eat or defend themselves, triple yuck. Poor wolves, they're so handsome, being the living ancestors. Does that sound contradictory? Never mind, who's the writer here? Of our cute little puppies. Yeah, the English language sometimes lacks a few nuts and bolts. How can an ancestor still be among us? History, techie, and Tommy is my new expression when I think that humans mistake tits with tots. I just heard one of you say twats in your thoughts, setchual perverts that you are. Behave or I'll stop right here, okay? Now, admit that sounds much cooler than hysterectomy, a frightening operation my poor mom had to undergo a few years ago. Don't worry, she's fine now. I'd rather put terrorists in the category of monsters, the real ones, not them that fantasy writers invent. Oh, Bergen, what a quaint, lovely, and very wet place it is. Yeah, we were warned that you get the 4 seasons there in a single day, so that we were dressed in our K-ways like 2 friggin' alpinists. The sun comes out, and the sky is a stunning blue. Then, before you turn the corner of a street, a mastodon of a cloud, looking like an uber-bloated cow, breaks out and pisses over our heads in buckets, as if the latter were flower pots needing to be watered. And in between, the temperature browses like a crazy waltzing Matilda, giving you the hots. Don't pretend you didn't understand what I mean. Here, you with your cockroachy, twisted mind. Then 2 minutes later, the shivers. Wowee, the people of this city must be quite hardy to bear that kind of climate. Is this where Laurel and Hardy came from eons ago, before even my mom and my uncle were born? First off, let me fill you in on the country called Norway, since you may think that it lies somewhere in Greenland, in Alaska, or in Siberia. That's Russia's far east Dummkopf, at the extremity of Asia, above Mongolia. Okay, open your geography book of maps. You make me huff and puff, donkeys. Yeah, some of you are real donkeys, and it's not an insult, it's... When my uncle lived in Brooklyn 150 years ago and spoke delicious Belgian chocolate pralines, someone asked him, "Is it made in the Belgian Congo where the gorillas live?" Even if I also have an American passport, I must alas admit that world geography, for many U.S. school children, as well as for hillbilly growl-ups, is a dirty word. It is often limited to the neighborhood of their hometown. Ask some, okay, not all, kids from Manhattan to cite the 5 boroughs of New York City, and they'll stare at you like you came out of Central Park Zoo, on account that downtown, with the Bowery and the Village, uptown, counting Harlem, the East Side, the West Side, the Hudson, and the other river, is more than they can remember, since they believe the Big Apple to be the center of the world. I too, mind you, think New York City is where everything important happens, so here, they're not wrong. Paris, where I live, is a beautiful open-air museum with lots to do and to see, but as I may have told you before, Parisians suck. Most of them belong to the enraged Rottweiler family of canines, because they don't stop barking at other people. They're so mad, mainly at themselves, and most of the time terribly frustrated. Oh, you don't believe me? France is the only country in the world which has posters all over the place encouraging people to smile at foreigners on account that they scare the wits out of them. The Japanese even have in La Belle Capitale Française a clinic for traumatized tourists after they have been mugged and lost all their valuables. This is where I'm ashamed to be French. Hey, careful what you will say or else. France also gave the world Monet, Renoir, Victor Hugo, Marcel Proust. You don't know who they are? Never you mind. And also Champagne, the Eiffel Tower, the Statue of Liberty. Yeah, the one you see from your window on the 50th floor of the Trump Tower or at the top of the Empire State Building. So, you're fed up with my asides? Turn your ass aside and this ain't an insult. On the contrary, you ought to thank me for educating you for free. You could tell your folks that you're being taught a unique and never before offered 101 felinist Renaissance course. Did I already say that Bergen was the second largest city of Norway? I find it prettier than Oslo, since we've also been there, but I won't tell you about it until much later on. If you perk up your ears and your eyes and behave. It's full of students, which makes it a jolly place. Little bands playing at different street corners and pretty squares. That's where I heard, for the very first time of my life, the most beautiful song in Spanish, Gracias a la vida, played by a very handsome Latino. My uncle bought me his CD. I almost wanted to hug that guy, but you don't do that in front of all and sundry, and it wasn't even on a Sunday. No, I ain't mawkish, shaking my pears vocabulary. The city was founded almost 1,000 years ago during the Viking times. With some harbors in Germany, it was one of the most important trade ports of the region, and it was called Bergen. That's the old and very colorful area you see as you enter the city. It's also known as the Hanseatic Wharf. Maybe the name Hans comes from there, not waff, woof. It has nothing to do with dogs, jerks, even if they did, and still have them sled huskies to carry goods and wares. Wow, the latter are stunning with their striking blue eyes and their white and gray fur. Now you see them trotting in every big city all over the world without sleds, donkeys. There's a fabulous market with all kinds of artifacts, hand-embroidered jerseys, caps, socks, and fox and bear furs on account that it is permitted here to kill our white cousins for that purpose. When I heard that, my uncle and I were in and outraged. The broads wearing them are shameless hussies, and they could never be my friends. They even eat reindeer meat, carnivorous cannibals that they are, and animals I don't even dare list. I love their smorgasbords, but now I demand that they contain only fish on account of that they also add some of them cannibal specialties. This here port is apparently surrounded by 7 mountains. I don't believe that, because Rome, too, is supposed to be spread on 7 hills along with Jerusalem, and goddess knows what other capital. That's super tissues of the Middle Ages to make the places seem even more interesting for the gullibabble tourists. Okay, it's true that Bergen is the gateway to the most magnificent fjords I've ever seen. Actually, I've never seen any before, but that's a manner of speech, so why shouldn't I use it? As I told you before, we wore our K-way caps every 10 minutes between sunny moments and downpours. Poor Bergensers. Whether you like it or not, that's how they are called. They must feel so wet, whether it's summer, fall, winter, snowdrops, or spring. We visited the oldest historical part of the city, called Bergen. It's all in wood, and the buildings look like crooked chalets, but they're so quaint that a cigarette butt still lit thrown against a wall could put the whole area ablaze in minutes. In one of those narrow lanes separating the houses, they're never higher than 3 stories. We crossed 2 old turkeys, in French, dinde is the name you call gagagenarian ladies, smoking while they were cackling, that is, with their wrinkled lips half open. We banged against each other on account that they wanted to pass first, but I pushed them and forced my way ahead. One of them croaked in English with a charming accent, "What dirty manners you have," and she turned to my uncle, adding, "You are the father of this bread? Well, you just give her a hiding." I didn't let Uncle Berky answer. Instead, I whistled at them, then imitated the croak of the squinter who addressed us. "First of all, you old turkeys. Yes, you have dribbled chins too, like them fat birds. By the way, I love roast turkey, especially at Thanksgiving. I know I already said that. Never mind. Before you give lessons to other people, put out your stinging cigarettes on account that you will burn the whole place, pair of nitwits. Then, why do you dress like them stupid babushkas? You're not even Russian. If you don't put them disgusting things out right now, I'll stuff them into your twisted throats, verstanden! The two were so flabby-ghosted and scared of me that they almost swallowed their butts, and lo, very lo, and behold, they obeyed me, then crushed them under their clogs, but not without uttering, "Mein Gott, sowas an Heimliches haben ich nein Gichissen, Donnerwetter noch niemals." Some insult I won't even bother to look up in the dictionary. They heard enough of mine, and shoo, they trotted away like Lorella and Hardiette, because the one was anorexic, yet she too had a triple chin, so crumpled you'd have thought she was wearing an antique mitten full of holes. While the other one was as fat as 3 turkeys put together. She was the squinter. Can you imagine a bulk of wobbly flesh with squinting eyes? I would have had the willies if I'd met her alone on the corner of the street. Even them ugliest trolls were prettier than that babushka. Okay, I'll tell you what a troll is, because if you have never come this far north, you wouldn't know. So this time, I won't call you an ignoramussy. They're either dwarves or giants that dwell in caves or high up in the mountains. They belong to Scandinavian folklore. You find them in parks and in the forest. Nowadays, they make kids laugh, but once upon a time, they used to scare the wits out of people who encountered them, believing that they would be cursed and sent to hell. This is called superstition. Superstition is what I say. And you can blow your nose till it gets the color of salmon. You will still remain super dumbhead. At one of the posh stores in Bergen, my uncle saw the word sales. He always stops where stuff is reduced, whatever it is. Toilet paper, floor wax, or boxers, and even perfumes. By the way, if he finds a dog lotion with a nice smell at a reduced price, he buys it to spray his armpits like it was Chanel No. Woof. We got in because I too like quality stuff I can afford, with Unky Berky's money, of course. What do we have uncles for? Then too, I deserve at least 1 gift a day for all the ridiculous visits he forces on me, like half a dozen churches in a single town. Let's forget about our Italian trip, where cathedrals are considered museums. A good thing if you don't get out of them totally atheistic. Yeah, atheists go through a trauma with all the monkey business they've had to bear if they had religious parents going to Mass every Sunday, and on each and every holy day, and less holy events where people pretend to pray all the while they are cursing their neighbors, or even wishing death to some, and they call themselves God-fearing good Christians. This one was mainly a garment boutique. My uncle wanted to buy a thick woolen jersey from the men's rack whose price tag showed 70% off. But when he asked the middle-aged saleswoman, you couldn't tell whether her hair was fade yellow or dirty white. And she had calves like them Italian Parma hams that hang at the pork butchers, hooked on the top of his head. To take out the one in brown, I whistled like I had just remembered that old lady who slipped on the same color of dog shit on the pavement of our Parisian street. I had to help her get up, but now she smelled, phew, and us too. No! That won't suit you at all! No, no, no! I almost yelled so that the sales lady turned towards me, all blanched as if I were a troll, suddenly rip-scoop-skicated from a cave. In such cases, having heard enough times that the customer is always right, I ignored her gesture and pointed at a jersey that bore the Norwegian flag on a red background. Zuti, bleated my nerd of an uncle. The names he showers me with when he loses his bearings in the land of bears, wash more, makes me want to bash his head. Are you sure this will be okay for France? Now you should know that the French are very conservative people, and they criticize whoever wears colorful clothes, not to mention the flashy ones some punks don. In these cases, they croak out loud like them lemurs in Madagascar when you interrupt their dinner. This is where I'm prouder being an American than being a frogess. You will only wear it on weekends when we go to the movies or out to the Jardin d'Acclimatation, which is a cool amusement park in the Bois de Boulogne, west of Paris. He knows that I don't let anybody even sneer at us, because as a fierce felinist, I hit back so hard that the culprit is first stunned and runs away mumbling curses at me. Parisians always say, merde, putain, va te faire foutre, and so forth and ding dong. Too vulgar to translate. Not that American swears are cuter. Them you surely know better than me, perverts that you are. You may not know, neither did I, that at the beginning of the 20th century, Norway was a very poor and backward country. It's only when they discovered petrol that it became one of the richest nations in the world. But unlike the Arab, the Nigerian, or the Angolan governments, the Norwegian authorities did everything so that the whole population could benefit from that bounty, with the result that there are no poor people there. Actually, the country is so big and the population so small in comparison that everyone can buy land for a reasonable price and build a lovely isolated villa with a personal boat garage, like in Venice. So isolated that if I were Norwegian, I would go crazy and have 2, if not more, bees in my bonnet. Because what kind of a life is it to look at the water day in and night out? Even if it's surrounded by impressive fjords and talk to butterflies and mosquitoes. In summer, yeah, the latter sting delicate little girls like me and like my rosy-skinned uncle, ouch, ouch. And even if Bonka raves about a rose that's a rose that's a rose, what kind of poetry did that gherkin totally stoned write? He too would go bonkers after a couple of days, admiring the wildflowers, a running hare, a white fox in winter that is, when the whole landscape is lily white. Not counting temperatures that can keep you frozen for a century, like those cryogenic moguls. No, this has nothing to do with crybabies, except for the family and friends, who have to wait centuries before they can talk again to their departed ones. And the latter must not be nicked in any way or have a scratch, even in the private parts. Who believe that after their long schluff, they must have listened to Sleeping Beauty when they were toddlers. They will one day rescoopsicate. Well, in this here country, you can do that for 0 cents, especially if you do it in the North Pole, where it is night all day long. On the other hand, since we were in summer, the sun never goes down. Strange, but cool place this is, yeah. It's like nowhere else in the world. Here, you must include all the countries of the midnight sun. Open your geography book again. And no, the North Pole ain't on Mars or Jupiter. If you want to read some words of Norwegian, here is a sampling. Nygard, Vagen, Byfjorden, Bjorven, which was the old name of the city. Don't ask me how they are pronounced. I don't have the patience of learning them.